Hey there folks, Aldershot here, and today we're going to take a look at Traverser. It's developed by Gatling Goats, and it's on sale on Steam at the regular price, around $15 USD. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Traverser, to sum it up nice and quickly, it's essentially an isometric puzzler. Alright, where this game involves a lot of, how should we say, physics-based puzzles, right? And we'll talk more about that when we get into the game, of course. Now, at the end of the video, we'll also talk about the game's options, as well as any extra features, if there is any. Now, I haven't quite finished the game. I think I'm roughly around 3 to 4 hours in. I'm not really quite sure because I've actually left the game on last night, which definitely throws off my Steam counter as far as how long I've been playing, but I believe it's about 3 hours, give or take, alright? So that's my experience level so far. It's not quite complete, of course. Now, we are fairly far into the game. We're not going to load our latest save. We'll do that in a little bit down the road. We have a save already prepped up just for this impression, so I'm just kind of looking for that now. Looking for Town Square 14, I believe. That's the save. There it is, Town Square 14. Alright, we're going to load into this one here. Now, as I mentioned before, this is a puzzler, if you will, and I am a person in this game who they call a traverser, right? In this world, in this very dystopian world where oxygen is a commodity, there is no sky, there is only, an underground city that we're traversing through right now, where it involves multiple levels, as you would expect. We're currently in the upper level, the richer area, if you will. And the special thing about traversers in this world is that we have this special kind of power glove which allows us to lift and carry objects, similar to what you would expect from, say, the gravity gun in, say, Half-Life or something like that. Kind of like that, right? And we can use this to solve puzzles and make our way through the world. But anyways, let's see what our current mission is in the game. We can hit Q just to bring up our current mission, and we have to find fill air. Okay, very good. Now, as you can see, the game is rendered out in this isometric view, and I think it does it for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's a good way to hide the low polygon aesthetics that this game is featuring currently, right? And I have nothing against low polygon aesthetics, but of course, keeping the camera away from going too far into the models definitely helps things out. It does have a really interesting sort of steampunk kind of cartoony aesthetics, and I actually really like the way the game looks as far as aesthetics and graphics and style is concerned. It's actually quite a good looker, I have to say. We'll talk a little bit more about the graphics down the road. For the time being, let's find this fill air gentleman so we can continue with our current quests. Here we go, fill air oxygen shop. Now, we are in the upper city, and the game gives you lots of opportunities to explore around, but for the time being, let's actually go into fill air, little shop here, and talk to this gentleman here.
Valerie, what are you doing here? Where's your... Oh no. Oh no, don't tell me. They finally came for him, didn't they? Oh, that's bad. This is really bad. What are we supposed to do now? Val, listen. I made a promise to Linus that if something were to happen to him, I would tell you the truth. Remember a couple of weeks ago when your father went away on a business trip? That was a lie. Linus was called the Raven Corporation to work on their new communication device, some new signal processing technique that they've developed. The Lower City Rebellion has been trying to get their hands on this technology from the moment they learned of it. And now, your father is gone. The Rebellion isn't foolish enough to kidnap Linus. He's one of Raven Corporation's greatest assets. Kidnapping him would bring the full weight of Raven's security forces down on top of them. There's more at play here than might seem. I can't leave Upper City. People are depending on me for their oxygen, but I have a friend named Jacob Fisher in the Lower City. He's head of Raven Corporation's surveillance team. He'll be able to help you, but he keeps the location a secret, even from me. If you can get his location, an oxygen mask and some sort of light source, I'll help you get to Lower City to meet with Fisher. Go find Fester, Cage, and Gus, old friends of mine. They live in this part of town, and you can get what you'll need. but you'll probably have to do something for them in return. Ooh, one more thing. Your father mentioned some strange radio waves he caught when he worked on the communication device. He said it sounded like our trace bots, but less robotic. I'm not even sure what it was all about, but it almost certainly related to his disappearance. Good luck, Val. I'll be here waiting for you.
So there you go, a little example of some of the voice acting in this game. It's actually really well done, I have to say. So far, from what I've seen, the characters are really well voiced. They're showing a lot of charisma and personality in their voice work. And the characters designed themselves are actually pretty appealing, I must say. So, as far as aesthetics and presentation is concerned, I don't really have a whole lot of complaints. But yeah, voice acting quite good. And if you didn't catch that already, we are playing as a character named Val. In the beginning of the game, our father goes missing. Then we get involved with some sort of rebellion. This is a sort of like a dystopian story from living in an oppressive state and all that kind of stuff. A very authoritarian state. So that's the kind of story and narrative that this game kind of presents. Anyways, we have to find Gus, Fester, and Cage. Let's see if we can do that. Now, all these NPCs, they pretty much serve as just kind of like a Where's Waldo thing right now. They're just like, okay, well, just go next to these people. Maybe one of these people are Gus, Fester, or Cage. So we'll do that right now. So this is kind of the opportunity the game kind of gives the player to sort of explore the world. And the game definitely incentivizes that, actually. How about you? Okay, we can speak to him. He's probably one of these gentlemen.
I'm in the middle of some extremely important business. I'm standing guard, in case you didn't notice. For that matter, why do I need to explain myself to a child? What's that? Phil? Fisher? Lower City? I can't help you right now. I'm in the middle of something important. We're stealing a briefcase with secret documents, you see. My little companion is working on it right now. Come to think about it, he's been down there for, oh my, almost 5 days. Would you, mind going down there to check on him? Why don't I do it myself? Oh, well, you see, I'm scared of the dark. Yes, that's it. Scared of the dark. Obviously. You simply must help me. I'll make sure it's worth your while afterward.
So another little example of some of the voice acting. If there's any more dialogue, I'm going to skip it for the sake of time. But I wanted you guys to get another example of the voice acting in this game, because this is actually really well done, right? In my opinion.
Almost forgot to tell you. I accidentally escaped.
We'll skip this. Alright, so here we are. We have to find his friend, I believe. So we'll do that now. Like I said, you know, we are a traverser, so we have this sort of weird glove that allows us to manipulate objects. So we'll be doing that. Let's see if we can find an opportunity to really show that off. Let's see. The puzzles in this are actually fairly simple for the most part. But some of them have definitely teased my brain a little bit. Okay, now I can show you a little bit of the combat. This is probably the weakest part of the game, the combat. What you're looking at is right now. I literally just kind of take the objects and smash it against any incoming enemy. And it's actually really, like, there's not a lot of force feedback when you're doing this either. So it's not that satisfying. By far, the combat in this game is the weakest point of the game, without a doubt, right? And also, this is one of the incentives to explore the game, by the way, to find little hidden messages so you can get more of the story and all that kind of stuff, right? But as I was saying, combat not the greatest part of this game. Now, I think the game kind of understands that. There's not really all that many combat sequences because of this, right? This really is, at its core, a puzzle adventurer, right? And exploration does play a role in it. However, it's definitely the puzzle aspect that will probably keep the player while playing, and obviously for the story as well. As so far from what I've played, the story is actually pretty intriguing. I like the characters. As I mentioned before, I love the art design in this game. It's quite gorgeous, wonderfully designed and stylized, even given its low polygon kind of look. But that actually says even more about its top grade design, right? That they can use low polygon techniques to get this kind of aesthetics out of the game, which is absolutely fantastic. Let's see, I think we found his friend.
Excellent work, girl.
Alright, like I said, I'm going to skip this dialogue for the sake of time. Alright, well, we talked to one person. We got to find Gus and Fester now. I think this is Gus.
Don't care much for me. Hello. Oh, I haven't.
Alright, I'm going to skip this because I've already done this, so I'll just tell you guys what he wants us to do. He wants us to throw this trash away and to paint up his nice house. He wants us to pretty up this little area here. So this will give us an opportunity to show you the manipulation tool a little bit further, right? Like, so we can actually kind of move this around pretty easily with our mouse. I don't believe it actually supports controller, it only supports mouse. And we use the scroll wheel to lift any given object up and down. Now we can hold the RMB to actually twist and turn it as well, right? So we have a fair amount of control with this tool. But anyways, now that we understand how to use the tool, let's just clean up this gentleman's backyard a little bit as he requested. All we have to do is just to take this trash and throw it overboard. As you can see, like I mentioned before, this city is underground. However, it's kind of weird in that it's floating underground, but whatever. We'll go with it. Alright, now we gotta take the paint. We can actually pick up paint in this case as well. I believe he wants the top to be red, the middle to be green, and the bottom to be blue. Like I said, I've already done this part, so I kind of know what this person wants. And this segment is actually a really well designed to help the player understand how to use the manipulation tool to its fullest effect, seeing how it does require manipulation of the y-axis as well as the x-axis, right? So let's see, we're almost done here. We almost got the blue down the bottom here. Let's take a little bit more blue. Oh, that's not what I wanted. A little bit more of the blue paint. Let's put her. There we go. I think that's good enough. Let's talk to our friend here.
Now that is art. So expressive. So
Anyways, we'll skip this, like I said before. Alright, wonderful. Now, on to the next person. Let's find Gus. Where is Gus? So this is definitely a portion of the game that you'll be playing through as well. Like I said, the game does incentivize exploration, albeit the maps are relatively small in comparison to other games I've played. But does give enough room for the player to kind of find secret areas for secret notes and other objects and all that kind of stuff. And there are going to be portions of the game where, like I said, you know, the game will require you to kind of explore the map and to figure out things on your own. Like right now, we are looking for Gus. We have no idea who Gus is, so we're going to just talk to random NPCs.
Valerie, I presume.
Here's Gus. Here we go. And again, we're going to skip dialogue for the sake of time.
Perhaps you've seen it. If you'll be so. The bloke's right. You'll have to sneak up. I'm sure it's no. Return hit. You're definitely.
Alright, let's see. What does he want us to do? Retrieve Gus's money. Okay, maybe I should have actually listened because I don't remember how to do that. Gus has asked me to find the man with the pink top hat, sneak up. Okay, you're right, sneak up behind, pickpocket him. Alright, so the game does actually have a sneaking mechanic, and this mission kind of reminded me of that. We hold shift, as you can see, our character is sneaking. Now later on in the game, when more guards and cameras and security is more involved, this will be a fairly large portion of the mechanics, where you have to kind of sneak past certain areas. But for now, we're going to sneak past this guy. Oh, he caught us. Alright, well, we'll just have to follow him. And hopefully he stops running around for a little bit. That robot got in our way. And when we're going to pickpocket him. So that didn't help things. Come on now. Alright, we got it. Perfect. Now we can go back to Gus and finish up this mission here. Now, I believe he was just down here. Here we go.
Ah, wonderful. Splendid work, Valerie. Here's your mask, as promised. Best of luck, and stay safe.
Alright, great. Give us our mask. Wonderful. Now, We have to return to fill air. Alright. And I believe he was just up here. So as you can see, the mechanics so far are pretty simple, right? There's not a whole lot to it. You pick things up, you move things around, and you can sneak sometimes. That's essentially the breakdown of the mechanics. It's not going to be too hard to understand or to play. I think even people with very little experience with video games can probably find some enjoyments out of this game as far as understanding how to play anyways. It's a pretty simple game as far as mechanics. Anyways, we finished this mission here. We're going to exit this area, move on. And now we're in the sewers. Now I'm going to skip a little bit because I want to show you guys a specific puzzle, just to highlight some of the puzzle segments that's in this game. And I think this one highlights it the best from what I've seen anyways. Let's see, we have to go to the sewers, number 30. Okay, this is the save, that'll take us there. So we're already in the sewers, right? But now we're just kind of fast forwarding a little bit here, just to show you one of the puzzles, to give you an example, right? So here we are, this is one of the puzzles. So we have to get across this railing, or this part here, right? And we obviously can't. Now there is some green goo that will probably hurt us, but it will probably float these containers up, allowing us to jump across. But the question is, how do we get the liquid goo to flow further up? Well, there's two little drains here, and we have these pipes that we can manipulate. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these pipes and kind of twist them around just like that. Actually, we'll start with this one here. Here we go. We'll take one of these. Let's see. Manipulate it a little bit. It is a little bit finicky trying to turn it in the exact right direction you want, especially in this isometric view. That'll be going to be one of my complaints about this game. Now I understand why it's an isometric view. For one thing, like I mentioned before, it's probably to hide the low polygon aesthetics, right? Because from a distance the game looks great, but I'm sure if you get close you'll start seeing lower res textures and all the edges from the low polygons and all that stuff. But from a distance the game looks absolutely fantastic. I have no complaints. But another reason for this isometric view, I believe, now I have no actual concrete proof of this, this is just suspicions on my behalf, but I also believe it's because is to help the player move the objects, because already we have the WASD key to move the player herself, or the character herself, and the mouse is really used to move objects. So if this was more in a traditional third-person view or even a first-person view, the mouse would also have to double up as a camera orientation device, or yeah, like a camera orientation thing is what I'm trying to say. Control, right? And it being isometric, it being kind of like in this kind of static view, it does kind of relieve some of the controls from the player, right? So I do believe that's one of the reasons why it's rendered out in the isometric view. However, it does still come with problems, right? As you can see, trying to twist and turn and trying to get these things to connect exactly in this sort of space, in this sort of view, it can be a little bit finicky, can be a little bit clumsy. Now luckily the game is somewhat forgiving in that even if you're kind of close in approximation to where it's supposed to go, it will kind of hook up almost automatically. Let's see if we can do that. There we go, just like that, right? So the game is kind of aware of this complaint that I'm having from how I'm feeling with, you know, the controls and stuff like that. But regardless of that, it can be an issue sometimes. Alright, good. We got some liquid going over the corner. So as you can see, the liquid is filling up. So we can probably take this here and do the same. However, I think we need more straight pipes so we can get over the ledge. There we go. So as you can see, you know, it can be a little bit finicky, but I'm not having too much issues with it. Right? The developers have compensated any potential perspective issues, as I've mentioned earlier, and you can definitely tell they tried to make make the puzzles as user-friendly as possible, given the limitations of the isometric view and this sort of mechanics, right? This sort of puzzle mechanics. Let's see here. Let's throw this up here. Nope, that's not what I want. Okay, this one's going to give us a little bit of trouble. Let's see if this will be enough. Okay, good. I think that'll do it. Alright, now we can jump across. Wonderful. So that's one example of the physics-based puzzles that this game has to offer, right? So let's just move forward. So overall, actually before I get into my final thoughts and stuff like that, oh, by the way, we can catch these little birds. And they will give us little recording story segments, right? That's our little bonus, another example of an incentive to explore the game as you play through it. The game is relatively linear, but at certain segments, like the towns area that we've explored earlier, it does open up a little bit for the player to kind of explore. But for the most part, from what I've experienced, it is relatively linear, so don't expect, you know, a huge, you know, expansive world to explore through. It is, again, as I mentioned, is more of a story segment. Alright, so this is a boss segment. Now, I'm not really a huge fan of the boss fights, to be honest. They're very, very combat oriented. Like most parts of this game is very puzzle oriented. This one's more combat. You kind of pick up, you know, one of the dynamites, and you get near one of these tentacles, and you kind of put it there to kind of blow them up. And that's all you do, right? The boss fights, to be honest, in this game is a little bit lackluster. I'm not a huge fan of it. I like exploring the world a lot more. I like learning more about the story a lot more than the boss fights. And I like some of the puzzles. I find them to be a lot more satisfying than a lot of the puzzle or the boss segments in this game. I've only experienced 2 boss segments so far. This is the first one. But from what I've experienced, I'm not really a huge fan of the boss fights. They're pretty lackluster, to be completely honest. You know, they're not very satisfying. And they're relatively frustrating to learn their patterns, to be completely honest, because the game doesn't really explain what you're supposed to do all that obviously sometimes, right? But luckily for us, from what I've experienced so far, the boss segments is definitely not the highlight of the game, nor is it the feature of the game, or even the majority of the game. This is very, very much just I guess something that's just a part of the game. It's definitely one of the weaker elements, in my opinion, right? Anyways, we just died, whatever. We're gonna load, let's see, we're gonna load back into, let's do the prison segment here, so we can explore some of the more sneaking elements of the game. Alright, so we're now in the prison. Let's see what we're supposed to do here. Escape the prison. Alright, so we have to escape the prison. Now, certain segments like this, I do have a critique in that sometimes you might not know exactly where you're supposed to go. Whereas earlier levels, it was very clear on what you're supposed to do, either, you know, find a certain person or to retrieve a certain object. In this segment here, it's just escape the prison. And they're gonna throw you certain puzzle segments where you might find a little bit confusing, and you might get a little lost in what you're supposed to do. So clarity isn't always the strong points in this game, right? But luckily for us, you know, that's kind of the points of some of the puzzles in this game, is to kind of figure it out yourself, I guess. But I found some parts of it a little bit frustrating. But overall, I actually really enjoyed the game from what I've played so far. You know, it's a very interesting idea to use these sort of physical, the physics as the main form of puzzles, for sure. And I really like the story so far. You know, it has a pretty interesting dystopian story, and obviously, as I mentioned before, I really like the graphical styling of this game. I do like the steampunk look. I do like how optimized the low polygon aesthetics are used to design a very, very stylized and very, very appealing world and characters. I like the characters. I like the voice acting. There's a lot of really good things to like about this game, you know. As far as presentation is concerned, I really don't have a whole lot of complaints. The only thing I would really say about the game is Well, the mechanics are relatively simple, right? Like, I personally don't have too much of an issue with it. I found it enjoyable for the most part. However, I do know a lot of people, a lot of gamers expect, you know, more layers in their mechanics for it to be, for any given game to be enjoyable, let's just say, right? And because of that, this game might be a little bit too simple for some. After all, honestly, the only mechanics in this game is moving some objects around and doing these sorts of puzzles that I'm doing right now. And maybe explore the world a little bit, you know, explore the world a little bit and talk to some people. That's essentially it as far as mechanics are concerned, right? You're not going to get too much in the way of combat, that's for sure. The combat's actually quite atrocious, to be completely honest, as I demonstrated on the rats earlier. You're literally just taking objects and throwing them at any given enemy, and when you hit them, there's really not that much visual or even audio feedback, so it's not even very satisfying to do. So the combat is by far the game's weakest points, but I like some of the puzzles, you know. I think my favorite part of the game is actually just exploring the world and taking in some of the fantastic looking sights and learning more about the story, you know. I think the story is definitely one of the major elements that kept me playing and probably will continue to keep me playing until I finish it anyways. But yeah, there you go. That's basically Traverser. Pretty interesting little physics puzzle game that they got going here. $15 I think is fairly reasonable for a game with this amount of polish, for sure. A few little issues in user friendliness, mainly because of its isometric view. But as I mentioned before, it's probably using isometric views for very, very practical reasons, such as, you know, reducing the amounts of micromanagement that the player have to do as far as camera controls is concerned. So in the end of the day, it's probably a very logistical decision, albeit it does make some of the puzzles a little bit more frustrating than necessary because, you know, perspective becomes a little bit harder to decipher in an isometric view, right? But regardless of that, pretty interesting game. I've enjoyed it for the most part. Again, you know, might be a little bit simple for some gamers, but if you like puzzle games, if you like games with really nice aesthetics and polish, then Traverser might be an interesting option for you. So take a look. Anyways, folks, that's about it. Hopefully you folks enjoyed this. Hopefully you found this informative, and if you did, you know, show me some love, like, share, fave, and comments. And if you haven't already, subscribe. I'll bring you lots more videos just like this. Okay, before I go, because I'm a derpader, I almost forgot, I'll show you the options. There's no special features that I know of, okay? Maybe something pops up at the end of the game when you finish it, but for the time of this recording, I haven't quite finished it, so I don't know of any special features, if there is any. There's only one play mode that I know of. As far as video is concerned, you have your resolutions. You can turn on and off full screen, vertical sync, of course. Then you also have shadow quality, texture quality, and anisoptic filtering. I always have trouble saying that word for some reason, right? So pretty, you know, what you would expect as far as graphics options concerned. Let's check out what Advanced has in store for us. We also have motion blur, ambient occlusion, bloom, and detail mode as well. So it's not bad for a game of relatively low graphical fidelity as far as poly count is concerned. Aesthetically, I'm not saying it is of low quality, okay? Aesthetically, I love how the game looks. But anyways, let's go back. I'm just clarifying what I meant there anyways. But as far as audio sliders, the usual suspect. You have master, dialogue, music, and special effects. Then we have controls, in which we can customize the controls as necessary. However, as I mentioned before, I don't believe the game actually features gamepad support. Alright, just so you guys are aware. So there you go. That's the options and no special features, I guess, in this case. So I'll end the video here officially. See you next time, guys. All the shoutouts.